We have mentioned in our previous reports that how important the commander is for the soldier. The commander is sometimes a father figure. During war, soldiers look for a place where they can take refuge and feel safe. That place is, of course, with the commander. Hello, the Pioneer viewers. Today we will share with you a new move made by the commanders in the Russian army. So much so that this situation is the biggest reason for what is happening in the Russian army. While the Russian army is trying to fight the attacks of the Ukrainian army on the front line, it is also struggling with the wrong decisions of the Russian commanders. Therefore, Russian soldiers are angry and most of the Russian commanders don't obey their decisions. Russian commanders took a very critical decision against soldiers who do not obey orders. We reached this decision thanks to the Free Russian Legion fighting in the ranks of the Ukrainian army. So much so that the Free Russian Legion invites Russian soldiers who are afraid of Russian commanders to join their ranks in order to turn the pressure on the Russian soldiers into an advantage. So what is the new decisions of the Russian commanders? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our report. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready, the Pioneer reports. Sources belonging to the Free Russian Legion recently shared a report with a remarkable information about the Russian army. As you know, the Free Russian Legion consists of Russian citizens. These Russian citizens are against the Putin government. They are also strongly opposed to the Russian Federation's attempt to invade Ukraine. Therefore, these people have chosen to stand by Ukraine instead of their own country. As you may recall, the Legion carried out a very critical cross-border operation in the Belgorod Oblast of Russia at the beginning of the summer. These people have a very strong connections within the Russian army. Thanks to these connections, every developments in the Russian army is learned by the Free Russian Legion. We have shared information conveyed by the Legion many times before. The information that has emerged in recent days has caused a great shock in many sources, including Russian sources. Russian commanders are destroying Russian soldiers. Yes, that's right. You heard it right. Russian commanders are destroying Russian soldiers. According to the claims of Free Russian Legion, Russian commanders assign soldiers who refuse to fight to a reconnaissance group. These soldiers are usually informed that their reconnaissance activities are safe and that they will not engage in hot combat. However, these soldiers are sent here in order not to distract the focus of the Russian army. If these soldiers are not sent as reconnaissance groups, they attempt to rebel in the army. This situation paves the way for the Russian army to experience internal turmoil. Therefore, soldiers who are sent to the reconnaissance group and don't want to fight should not return to the headquarters. According to the sources of the Free Russian Legion, reconnaissance groups consisting of Russian soldiers were shot on the orders of the Russian commanders, and it is reported that many Russian soldiers were destroyed in these reconnaissance groups. Allegedly, at least 100 of Russian soldiers were destroyed due to the attacks by the Russian commanders. However, it is estimated that this number may increase even more, because local sources in the region also publicized numerous reports that the Russian soldiers were destroyed by fire from their own headquarters. This is not the only report that Russian soldiers were destroyed by the Russian commanders. According to the allegations, the Russian army started to use the meat attack method again during the clashes in the direction of Krinky. As you know, the Ukrainian army is carrying out very critical attacks on the Kherson front line. These attacks have worn out the Russian army. Therefore, in order to stop the Ukrainian raids, the Russian army orders a large number of troops to attack the Ukrainian army, often without artillery support. Ukrainian artillery units in the region, as you know, the artillery attacks of the Ukrainian army in this region are quite strong. These attacks cause the destruction of hundreds of Russian soldiers every day. Russian soldiers, on the other hand, recently made a very critical move to the Russian war leadership. Allegedly, Russian soldiers asked the Russian war leadership not to continue the meat attack anymore. The complaint of the soldiers, who stated that none of these attacks yield results and that the Russian soldiers would suffer more losses if they continued, was not taken into consideration. Moreover, it was decided to punish these soldiers. You heard it right. Russian soldiers will be punished for reporting that events on the front line are no longer in favor of the Russian army. Allegedly, these complaints and the latest situation of the Russian soldiers were reported to the Russian military judiciary. A reconnaissance group decision was issued against the Russian soldiers. At the beginning of our report, we explained what reconnaissance groups are for: absolute destruction. In other words, Russian soldiers who express the fact about the Russian army, who realistically address the situation of the Russian army, are punished by being assigned to the reconnaissance group. Allegedly, such cases have increased considerably in recent days because Vladimir Putin, the head of the state of the Russian Federation, made a very critical decision. Allegedly, Russian leader Putin launched a new embargo to prevent the spread of developments in the Russian army. Putin wants to prevent the spread of developments in the Russian army, keep all complaints confidential, and not to publicize them. According to the allegations, the use of telephones and all kinds of mass communication devices will be banned in the Russian army in the coming days. In this way, Russian leader Vladimir Putin will both prevent the emergence of the increasing problems in the army and prevents the emergence of the reactions against the army in new mobilization decisions. However, we can say that these issues are still allegations. Our sources in the region are currently sharing reports about the lack of healthy connections with sources in the Russian army. More critical information about this issue will emerge in the coming days. While all this is happening, interesting events continue to take place within the borders of the Russian Federation. For a long time, there was a silence within the borders of the Russian Federation, but we can say that this silence is now broken. In the past days, a large explosion occurred in the town of Kotovsk in Russia. The place where this explosion occurred was a gunpowder factory. As you know, the arms of ammunition crisis of the Russian army is quite big. Therefore, gunpowder factories, iron and steel production facilities are very critical for the Russian army to resist on the front line. It is claimed that it was Russian sabotage group that carried out the explosion. The damage to the factory is quite large. It is claimed that the fire that broke out with the explosion lasted for about 3 hours. According to some sources, this explosion occurred due to the drone attack by the Ukrainian army. However, all of these are just allegations for the moment. So, what do you think? Do you think the problems in the Russian army will grow? Will Putin's efforts to hide the news give results? What do you think about the explosion at the gunpowder factory in Russia? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.